Here are some unscripted thoughts about my weird philosophy of life. Weird is a little bit being immodest. I think it's really, at the risk of sounding like a know-it-all, I think it is the wisest way to live life. But I fully expect that most people won't have the discipline, frankly, to do it. First, I should say I'm Marty Nemko. My philosophy could be summarized in saying maximize every heartbeat. I know that flies in the face of the current belief that work-life balance is critical, but I believe that the life well led, something you would appreciate as you're going through life and on your deathbed, would be to ever be thinking, how can I maximize each heartbeat? Maximize, that is, maximize contribution. And it's a lot easier to do that if you're living modestly, where your rent is very little, or you're living with your parents. Taking the time to find a backyard cottage in a good neighborhood, or a room or an apartment or an attic or a basement apartment in a great neighborhood, but that is perhaps owned by a widow who doesn't really need a lot of money. You make that effort one time to find that you have saved a fortune and given yourself tremendous amount of freedom to do the kind of activities that would make the biggest difference without worrying if it's paying that much. The big argument against doing that is twofold. One is that it's going to make you sick, and I really believe that as long as you're using your best skills, which is going to be what's going to enable you to make the biggest contribution, and you're not rushing, you may live as long or longer because you're feeling good about your life. There's a sense of optimism. If you're feeling good about what you're doing, you're more likely to take care of yourself, to eat well, to exercise reasonably, because you feel you're doing something important all the time. I like to compare the person who uses their best skills for 40 hours a week versus those that spend 70. There's no question in my mind that the person who's using their good skills, in my case it's thinking on my feet, verbally or in writing, in the service of making a difference that would otherwise not be made. I tend to talk about contrarian issues that I believe in that most people don't, so I'm not just a grain of sand on a beach of or a one voice in a very loud chorus. For example, I'm very pro-choice, but to talk about that is meaningless. But we're talking about being what is pathologized as a workaholic and advocating for that. That's very few people are going to advocate for that, and yet I deeply believe it's a good use of my time, and hopefully can make a difference if even a few of you decide that maybe this vaunted work-life balance, let alone the pursuit of happiness, is not necessarily the wisest approach to life. Of course, key to that is figuring out what your best skill is, and I couldn't have conceptualized verbally so precisely that a lot of people can conceptualize verbally that they think that they write well or they speak well, but to have granularized it a bit, whereas mine is not just writing and thinking well, but doing it on my feet, thinking quickly, and therefore doing work that enables me to use that skill, so that I create these videos with no preparation, so that in just a few minutes of time I feel like I can make a lot of benefit, whereas if I spent all the time scripting it and polishing it and taking weeks to make sure it was just right and getting a lot of feedback, in the end I think I would have made less difference. I am going to now take this after it's done, and I'm going to convert it into a Psychology Today article, which I will post immediately. I'm fortunate that Psychology Today lets me post as much as I want, up to one every day, so I'm planning on doing that. But it's crucial that you identify what is to the best you can. Don't spend a lot of time doing it, but figure out what is your best core ability. It could be fixing things. It could be doing research for somebody. It could be being a right arm. You're just meant to be an excellent right arm to somebody. Or you could just have the gift of sales or of entrepreneurship, being able to come up with unmet needs and then come up with a very practical plan, not only to plan to succeed at it, but to execute it, which is a whole other thing. As they say, success is 5% inspiration, 95% perspiration. or maybe you just know you are an office detail person, somebody who's going to be an accountant or a bookkeeper or a computer programmer who's very detail oriented. Think about what your best skill is, and then really ask yourself, if in those discretionary hours, between hours, after your 40-hour work week is over, or your 30 or your 20, depending on whether, think about the roughly 70 hours a week that you have to, that you're both awake and aren't doing just life survival things like laundry and shopping and whatever. Really think about whether you'd be wiser to pursue work-life balance or to spend as much time using those best skills, making the biggest difference you can that others might not make. Compare that, for example. For example, I'm a huge believer in the role of genetics and intelligence, and I choose to spend a lot of time on that. I don't have a PhD in. My PhD is in evaluation and research methodology, but it's not in genetics. But I can, I use my time to communicate with other experts and training them how to be better speakers, how to be better writers, and be sometimes giving a talk to give them some encouragement in this world in which the word even intelligence is a dirty word, let alone the genetics of intelligence. So I pick the things that I deeply believe in that are not popular. So think about what are your best skills, your best natural abilities, maybe acquired abilities, and where could you apply it so that it would make the biggest difference, where it's not already being done very well by everybody else. And then spend as many heartbeats as possible doing that. Of course, I understand that most of you aren't going to do that. Most of you are going to either follow the pursuit of pleasure to the least work you can get away with. Others of you are going to strive for work-life balance. But I profoundly believe, it may be my most deeply held view, that the wisest way to live life is to spend as many heartbeats as possible, making the biggest difference you can. And so I'll stop there. I do appreciate your writing a thumbs up or a thumbs down below there, or sharing it on social media is awesome, subscribing to my channel. But in any event, I certainly do appreciate your watching my stuff, maybe especially this video. So thank you. I am Marty Nemko.